Hello, this is Molly Reamer with this week's Rituals of Returning video. And today we are exploring a buffet, so to speak, of Inanna cards from several different decks as we close out November and our month of descent with Inanna. A reminder that we're actually descending metaphorically through the seven gates in the Patreon community live on Mondays. We still have a couple weeks of the descent journey of the upcoming. So if you are a member, thank you so much for being a member. And if you are not a member yet, you can still join in and have access to that Inanna's Descent collection, as well as the last couple of live sessions about Inanna. We do meet live every Monday. It's just it's going to switch from being about Inanna and be about other topics. But in general, we explore seasonal wisdom and everyday magic and ordinary enchantment and community connection every week on Mondays live on Patreon. So anyway, that said, let's go ahead and explore the cards. I'm going to go ahead and start with this one because it's the simple or the shortest message, not the simplest. Inanna is not simple by any means, but the first card is from the Goddess Inspiration Oracle by Chris Walter. And the message here is, if you descend into darkness, you can emerge unscathed. So Inanna is interesting because she is a goddess of descent and renewal, of descent and rising, like Persephone. And so the idea here is, if you are willing to descend, if you're willing to take the journey into darkness, you can emerge again unscathed and also changed, transformed by the willingness to descend into your own depths. So that is the core message here. I'm going to go ahead and check with the book and see what it says. So the association Queen Moon here, associated with the strength with the heavens and with resurrection. Inanna, the great goddess of the Bronze Age, was honored as the Queen of Heaven. Some believed she was clothed with the stars. Her name translates as Queen Moon, and the story of her descent and return from the underworld explains her connection to that celestial body. That you could look at the moon as descending and being reborn every month. Inanna's sister Ereshkigal was the goddess of death. One day, Inanna descended to the land of the dead to visit her sister, but instead of showing her hospitality, Ereshkigal killed her sister and hung her on a stake. While Inanna was trapped beneath the earth, the moon disappeared from the night sky and all things ceased to grow. After 3 days, the water god, there's a lot more to this story where, for example, Inanna's handmaiden Ninshibur goes everywhere seeking aid. The god fashions these little creatures out of the dirt from under his fingernails, and they go seeking Inanna, and they ask for her body as it's hanging. They say, can I have that, that body that's hanging there? And they bring her back, etc. So there's a lot more, there's a lot to this story. So she was resurrected and then returned to the upper world, bringing the moon and all of life back with her, which we can also see the connection to the Persephone story there too. Demeter, like Ninshibur, would not give up on seeking her lost daughter, in this case, her lost mistress, her lost goddess. She would not stop seeking her. And I always think, it took me a while in journeying with Inanna to recognize those other women in the story and how potent those stories are of how we, who are the Ninshiburs in our life, who will, seek us in the darkness, who will beat the drum for us and come after us when we've descended too far away and help us crawl back out again of the underworlds. And so anyway, lots to consider here with these Inanna cards. Okay, so this deck, I have to say, these next two decks I am not very familiar with at all. This deck I've had for actual just years and years and years and years, and I'm pretty familiar with it. This deck is the Divine Feminine Oracle by Megan Watterson, and it's not a deck that I actually use very often, and it's not one I'm very familiar with. So this reading will be a surprise for me as well as for you. So Inanna, again, the Queen of Heaven and Earth, and so her message here is, I have nothing to hide. I see and accept all that I am. So an affirmation for this week might be, I have nothing to hide. I see and accept all that I am. And so the explanation from the book is that Inanna represents the power that comes back to us when we accept and integrate our shadow. So we're going to be looking at that a little bit more when we get, you can see Lilith's chilling in the background here, but when we get to Lilith next month, we're going to be exploring more about claiming and naming our power. And so she's the power that comes back to us when we accept and integrate our shadow, or when we accept and integrate our whole selves. Inanna was the most prominent female deity in ancient Mesopotamia. At the height of her worship, around the Uruk period of 4000 to 2000 BCE, temples and shrines dedicated to Inanna lined the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Her name is Sumerian for Lady of Heaven, which is slightly different than what that book said, which was Queen Moon. But anyway, Lady of Heaven. Her temples housed her priestesses, and they each would take a man to bed with them on the spring equinox to reenact the divine marriage between Inanna and her consort Dumuzi. And so this card, this image could be seen as a uniting of the opposites from within, a uniting of the opposites from within, light and dark, heaven and earth. This theme occurs in the accounts of Inanna's descent, which we've already talked about, in which she must take off an article of clothing or something precious to her at each of the 7 gates. So when she finally reaches the underworld, she's naked and stripped of all the things of power. And so when we see this card, we see Inanna going into the depths of her own self. So another affirmation could be, I descend into my own depths. And she becomes more powerful because of her willingness to descend. So another affirmation might be, I am willing to descend. I am willing to descend. And then, let's see if I can get my page turned here with my one hand. And so she courageously descends and faces the aspects of herself that are hard to get to when she's fully dressed or heavily cloaked in the trappings of her life. So when she's fully dressed, it's hard to get to those aspects of herself. Inanna is an invitation to get naked. She wants us to drop our defenses. She wants us to see how holy and sacred it is to be vulnerable. As above, so below. Heaven and earth are not separate. Within us, deep down in the dark cages where we place parts of ourselves, the truths that exist there also exist right here on the surface of our everyday lives. And when we can face what we might think is negative about us, really embrace it and see it for what it is, then we can emerge more whole. We can emerge more whole, uniting with our twin sister from the depths, seeing and owning the hot mess we often are and not getting sabotaged by it. So in some stories, Ereshkigal is a lion down there in the darkness, kind of stinking and growling. And then others, she's trying to give birth, and so she's down there roaring and howling, and she's trying to have a baby. And really, and in that perspective, it's kind of like Inanna's bugging her, essentially, going down there and bothering her when she's in the middle of having a baby. And she Ereshkigal, just needs to be heard in her suffering there. And it's not really about being the bad guy in that situation. So then it says, we can face and own the hot mess we often are and not get sabotaged by it. The light must cast a shadow, and the high priestess is the one who is called to love them both, Soul question, can I love my shadow as much as my light? I have nothing to hide. I see and accept all that I am. So also from this deck, I was really excited to see that there's an Inanna card as well, who Inanna is the high priestess of Inanna, who wrote the story, the Inanna's Descent, the classic story of Inanna's descent through the 7 gates of the underworld. And Inanna is the world's first named author. So there's other people who wrote before her, but she was the first person to actually put her name on what she wrote. And sometimes when you think of that it's really kind of life-changing to think about the fact that something such as authorship is something that's so widely accepted. Like, of course, who wrote that? Who are you quoting? And somebody had to be the first person to ever think, I'm going to put my name on this so people know I wrote it. And people do still know she wrote it. 6,000 years, 4,000 years, however many, 6,000 years after it was actually written, we still know she wrote it. 4,000 years. And actually, why am I getting this wrong? Oh, well, I'll have to look it up. It's 4,000 or 6,000. And we still know she wrote it because she dared to put her name on it. She dared to name and claim. So I see a relationship with Inanna and the daring to name and claim, to say, this is me, I'm still here, and I'm daring to say, I wrote this is my work. I am one with my soul, and my soul is a legacy of love. So 2 affirmations from that card. And we'll go ahead and check in with what the book has to say about this Inanna card as well. And she says, this in Inanna embodies the ability to become one with our soul to live out our highest purpose. Born in Mesopotamia during the Akkadian Empire, around 2285 BCE, Inanna is considered not only the first known female poet, but also the first named literary author in history, or herstory. And so, yes, if it was 4000 BCE, then when there was temples to Inanna, then it would be 6,000 years old. But 4,000 years is the story. Inanna's worship is 6,000 years old. 4,000 years is the story. Sorry about that. I should have got my facts straight. It is believed, but no wonder I kept getting confused between the 2 options because there's multiple options. It is believed that Inanna was the daughter of the Sumerian king Sargon of Akkad. She was given the title of In, which signified her tremendous political power. Sargon named her the high priestess of the most important temple in Sumer, and she was charged with the lofty task of melding the Sumerian gods and goddesses with the Akkadian ones to create stability in the empire. She composed 42 hymns that we know about. And they used the descent of Inanna to train other scribes in transcription of stories. So there's a lot of copies of the descent of Inanna because they would practice by copying it in clay tablets, people, clay tablets. It's amazing. Her most famous works are titled The Exaltation of Inanna and the Sumerian Temple Hymns. Her hymns were copied and used long after her death and considered immensely valuable, equal to the inscriptions of kings. She is credited with creating the structure of poetry, psalms, and prayers that were then used throughout the ancient world. Her hymns inspired and influenced the prayers and psalms of the Hebrew Bible and the Homeric epics. It is believed that Inanna reached a semi-divine status in her lifetime, and she was considered to be the embodiment of Inanna. So she was considered to be Inanna. Over 4,000 years ago, she wrote in The Exaltation of Inanna, "Most precious lady, beloved by Anne, your holy heart is great." And in the Sumerian temple hymns, she wrote, "Whatever enters you is unequaled, whatever leaves endures." She is the limitless love and inexhaustible power that moves through us when we merge with the soul. And so that is a beautiful message there. She wants you to live and breathe your soul. She wants you to become so intimate with it that there's no separation. There's no more excuses or apologies for how powerful you are. You are the high priestess. You are this eternal, she whispers. Your holy heart is this legendary. So the soul question, what allows me to experience the reality of my soul? And again, the affirmations. I am one with my soul, and my soul is a legacy of love. So lots to share about both of those powerful women, priestesses, goddesses. And then I love this card. So this card comes, and this is another deck. This one's new. So I've had this deck for a while. I just don't use it that much. This deck is new to me. It is Goddesses, Gods, and Guardians Oracle cards by Sophie Bashford. So Goddesses, Gods, and Guardians. And I love this Inanna who's so robed in her jewels, and I think this is just a beautiful illustration of Inanna with the message of believe in yourself, believe in yourself. And so the message here is to trust in your dreams and abilities and let self-doubt fall away. So affirmations could be, I trust in my dreams and abilities, and another one, I let self-doubt fall away. So again, Inanna was worshipped by ancient Sumerians for over 3,000 years, 4,000 years, and that was 6,000 years ago. Her journey of death and rebirth is the oldest recorded of its kind, preceding Persephone and Jesus by millennia, by actually thousands. Her story is thousands of years older than Jesus' story. Earth Mother Inanna ventured through the 7 gates of the underworld, as we already have said, removing one of her garments at each gate. And what we're exploring over in the Goddess Magic community on Patreon is what those modern equivalents of those gates would look like and what we might lay down at each one of them. Some also believe the gates represent purification of her 7 chakras. When Inanna meets her sister Ereshkigal, it sparks her unconscious memory and she remembers her once forgotten sacred dreams. She's then killed, which some people could see as a symbolic release of her self-limiting beliefs. After 3 days, she returns to life as the Queen of Heaven, and her 8-pointed star is linked to the planet Venus. So she's aptly named the Queen of Heaven and Earth. And so, some questions to consider here. When did you last allow yourself to dream? Are there precious hopes buried deep inside your soul? Does your inner critical voice crush the tender shoots of your yearnings before they even have a chance to grow? Inanna is taking you on a healing journey into the great below of your ignored and denied dreams. There are many riches gleaming within you. Sorry, hopefully there's no riches gleaming without you. There are many riches gleaming within you. So Inanna says, journey with me into the underworld of your self-doubt. Let go of every belief that says you are unworthy or incapable. Suppressing your creative desires can manifest as chronic malaise, a gray cloud over your head that just won't shift. This is because the longing to share your light is part of your sacred contract with the goddess. So an affirmation might be, I share my light. There is something you're passionately wanting now, but you've been keeping the desire pushed way down. Don't do this anymore. Claim your desire. Set your desire free. I set my desire free. Believe in your ability to build a beautiful, sacred creation. So Inanna says, I am queen of both heaven and earth, and I will help you bring your dreams into reality. So some practice suggestions: use healing affirmations to reprogram your negative or self-critical thoughts. Take daily action steps in the direction of your dreams, even if they're very small steps. You may wish to embark on some shamanic journeying, or drum trance work, or sound healing work. You might use grounding techniques such as conscious breathing and a root chakra meditation. Invocation, I can do it. I can do it. I am worthy of creating my dreams. I can do it. I am worthy of creating my dreams. So I had a little prayer to close with from the cards that I make for our community members. And so this is a good reminder here as we really come to the end of this year. Eventually, we will have to pick a path set forth along our way. For now, though, we wait, daring to descend inward, listening to the story that is here now in the middle of things, uncertain and even shaky, and wondering where it will all lead. May we keep returning to center. May we keep trusting ourselves, if not our own knowing, at least our own questions. May we be brave enough to deepen and soften. May we be courageous enough to steep. May we persist in the long, slow process of excavation, of remembering and forgetting and remembering again. So many messages to consider today. May you remember to listen to your own soul dreams. Thanks so much for being here. Keep living your magic, everybody. Bye-bye.